Hey guys, what's going on? Eric here, bringing you guys some more D2 content. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about how I personally gain wealth in PD2. I will also have timestamps in the description or maybe like a pinned comment or both. All right, let's get started. So first and foremost, I just wanted to say up front that I don't personally do Ubers, Declone, or Rathma. I will do that a little bit in Season 8, but over the past 7 seasons, that's not something I've done to acquire wealth. I like magic finding, I like trading, I like mapping. That's what I want to do with my time. I'm not trying to ask for keys and primeval souls and black soul stones over and over again and farming that. I would rather do more mapping and just kind of enjoy the content. So to give you an idea of what the wealth gap is there, my characters and my wealth in general at the end of each season is usually between like 300 and 400 high runes. If you were going to do Declone and Rathma efficiently and you start finding Declone and Rathma only items, I'm assuming they get closer to like 2,000 high runes at the end of the season, if not more. I'm not really sure. All I know is that if you find a Declone or a Rathma item, they're worth like 150 high runes base. If not more, and then even then they might not take high runes. You need to acquire things like mirrors and vials that are even rarer. So with that being said, let's talk about how I gain wealth. Moving on to what character you're going to want to pick. You're definitely going to want to pick a meta build. I know some people don't like picking cookie cutter builds, but if you want to gain wealth, obviously picking a meta efficient build is going to gain you wealth the fastest. With that being said, DarkHumility is another content creator who always creates a tier list. The last few years, he's created a tier list in a Google Doc, and he tests out the builds in the beta and then ranks them. So you're definitely going to want to pick an S tier build. I will link that Google Doc in the description, and it has been reliable for me over the past few years. And some people might say to take that as a grain of salt, because just because it doesn't have an S next to it doesn't mean like the A+ builds are still good or aren't as good. You can still have fun with any build on that list, or most of them. With that being said, I personally in the past have done Combustion Source Season 1. Moving on, Holy Bolt Paladin, still decent. AoE wasn't that good. Wind Druid, still really strong. I did, what was it? Summon Necro 2 seasons in a row because I loved it so much. With all skeletons, that's still very strong. Definitely pick that build if you want to do solo dungeons as like a goal of yours. Also, I did Lightning Fury's on. That's still pretty strong. I think Lightning Strike still is superior. Correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't looked at the list just yet. And then most recently, I did Teeth Necro. Although that is going to get a nerf in Season 8. I don't know if it's going to be able to reach that 11k teeth, but we will see. I think it's still very strong, even if the sheet damage goes down. The AoE is just so sick. All right, moving on to how I start out a season. When I first started playing back in Season 1, I started a month late, and then with YouTube in mind, I recorded 100 cal runs, and that just happened to be a decent way to start out a season. From the very beginning, every single season, all 7 seasons, and I will do this in Season 8 as well, I record 100 cal runs. And yes, you will see that video, but also you're going to get high runes, you're going to get Worldstone shards, you're going to get decent drops. If you can't map efficiently, yeah, you're not going to find a lot of TC87 items in cows. It's possible from the elites, but you're gonna get between 3 and 5 high runes, and you're gonna get between 40 and 50 Worldstone shards. I'm not really sure how corrupted zones are going to work in this upcoming season, but cows is still gonna be a very reliable place to get Worldstone shards. I don't recommend doing boss content. It takes so much time to go to Andy, go to Meph, go to Bale, go to like Stony Tombs. With the variable locations, I know the first levels are predictable, but beyond that, it just takes so much time. So if you don't have teleport on your character, or if you don't have a low cooldown type of teleport, I definitely don't recommend doing that content. You could do things like Trav, Eldritch, Shank, Pindle, and then even the Pit is decent because that's a little bit more predictable. But yeah, definitely recommend starting out with cows until you can map efficiently. Let's talk about keys. This may or may not be a controversial take, but I personally don't key farm. Like I said, I don't do Uber content. Outside of early game, early season farming for keys, when people are trying to rush to get those torches and those Declone and Rathma drops, it's not really a good use of your time. I personally recommend just mapping and then buying keys. Granted, not everybody can just buy keys. You are you either are a seller or a buyer, and not everybody can be one or the other. But for me, I don't do Uber content, so I'm not buying them, and it's a better use of my time to just be mapping. And then I just wait till I get the key event in a map. If you get that twice, then you've accumulated roughly 9 keys, well 12, but you can sell a 3x3 for Vex. Other than that, it's not worth your time, especially if you don't have an efficient character. If you don't have a sorceress with a high level of teleport, teleporting all the way or traveling all the way to Blood Witch or the Summoner or the Burial Grounds or Izzy, and then you wind up keyless, that's just so much wasted travel time, and you are more likely to find wealth in a map than traveling all the way to find no keys. Let's talk about Worldstone shards and corrupting. Definitely don't corrupt something if you don't have a backup. If you are currently using that item early game, it's just not worth it. Wait till you find a second item. So let's say you found a Shaco, don't corrupt it right away. Wait till you find your second Shaco, and then if that first one survives, corrupt the second one. Usually corrupting items goes in pairs, so especially early game. Beyond that, later game, if you want to gain wealth, don't slam everything. People are way more likely to buy your item unslammed than if you slammed 15 lightning resists on it. That's not going to add value. That's going to devalue the item. So use your shards wisely. Look on the trade site for sure. Look at unslammed values. Look at trade games. Look in the trading channel to see what items are going for clean. It's just so much harder to sell an item. But even if you hit that amazing corruption, let's say you find an SOJ and then you corrupt 10 FCR in it. Later in the season, it's going to be worth 20 high runes, something around there. But nobody has 20 high runes right away, so even if you do have a Shaco and you hit +1 all skills, and you don't have an intention of using that item, nobody's going to be able to afford to buy it. So early on, definitely don't slam what you can't afford to lose. And then even later in the season, I don't slam certain items just because they're like a guaranteed goal or a guaranteed Vex, excuse me. So like when I find a High Lords, I can trade that for a Vex all season long. When I find Nosferatu's Coil, that's pretty much a Vex all season long. Similar to Gores, Gores are probably like a goal all season long. And like with Gores, what's the best corruption you can get on that? Maybe like 8 all res, maybe block, maybe faster run walk, maybe 25 MF, but the odds are you're probably going to get mana regen or you're going to get 15 poison res. So think about the risk reward of certain items. The knowledge just comes with time and personal preference. If you like to gamble, you're gonna slam everything, but you're also gonna end up with way less shards because also there is a market for selling the shards. Early on, 50 shards is about a Vex rune, but late, even mid to late season, 50 goes for like a Sur rune. So starts off at 0.5 and then it works its way up to 1.5. And then another thing to note, people pay for efficiency. So yeah, a lot of people can accumulate 50 shards and sell it for a Vex, but not everyone has 100 shards. So you could either sell it for a Vex right away, or you can wait till you get 100 and then maybe you can get a Sur for that, or maybe you can get a low so you can eke out an extra goal or a Vex rune for those shards. And then other things like weigh the risk reward, especially for those +1 corruption items. So yes, you can get a +1 corruption on a High Lord, but it's just so unlikely. You're just gonna guarantee that Vex. But with like a Shaco, if you get a +1 all corruption, that item's gonna be worth like 12 to 15 high runes. Same thing with K-Hagen. So I always slam K-Hagens, I always slam Shacos. So I have my own personal preferences and you will develop yours. I know a lot of you guys are gamblers, but I don't know, it scares me. In the same vein as whether you should or shouldn't corrupt an item, another thing to consider is selling mutant items or unidentified items. You can actually list unidentified items on the trade site. It's just a drop down where you can search for that, or maybe it shows up in the feed. But personally, there are a handful of items that I sell unit and it's been really beneficial. So there are make or break attributes to certain items. A really big one is a Crown of Ages. If you get 1 socket, it's virtually useless. Maybe you can get a goal rune. If you get 3 sockets, it's closer to a Burr rune, but you can sell it for like 1.25 or 1.5. And then if that person gets 3 sockets, then great, they made money. If they don't, then they lost money. I know a lot of you guys are gamblers, so this probably wouldn't interest you, but just a couple other items to consider. COA is the big one. War Traps, if you get a low magic fine, it's worth virtually nothing. And then also like a D-Web, if you get +1 or a really low pierce, then yeah, it's worth virtually nothing. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. Let's talk about mats on PD2. There are two main functions or features, whatever. I guess technically 3 and 4, but the main two are crafting and then map rerolling. Let's talk about topaz and diamond. These are the least popular. Diamond's probably the most or the least popular. This one's going to get used for map rerolling. I don't know if this is actually used for any crafting. And then topaz, the only thing that this is used for is the bountiful craft. It actually says it right here on my loot filter. But these, early on, you can probably get an rune. Later on, they're worth a mal. I personally don't trade them for less than a mal. I'll just hold on to them until the value goes up. And then more likely, these are going to be used for map rerolling. The next tier of popularity are ruby and sapphire. Ruby's probably the more popular one because that gets used for blood crafting. I think these, they even out around a mal, maybe an ist. Sometimes I can get an ist. Sapphire is the least popular, I would say, between those two, and that's worth more like a mal. Again, early on, they're probably only worth like an but you can hold out and then eventually get a mal for these. So I just stockpile and then maybe sell 10 stacks at a time. The most popular ones are amethyst and emerald. Let's talk about amethyst. This is used for caster crafting. Pretty popular. Caster claws is really popular. Weapons for low-level dueling, and then obviously caster amulets. And then, so this one peaks around an ist. Mal for sure, eventually an istron. And then the most popular one is your emerald. This gets used for safety crafting, primarily safety bows. That is going to be a best unsought for physical boson. I don't sell these for less than an ist. Sometimes I can get a gold rune. One thing I like to do sometimes is I'll do like a crafting pack. So this might be worth an ist gold on a good day, and then a soul might be worth a gold, like 50 of them, and then fragments are mal on a good day. I might sell 50, 50, 50 for a vex. Yeah, they're all like getting sold for just a little bit more than it's worth, but you're selling the convenience in that regard. So that's one package deal that I like to do every now and then. All right, let's move on to the runes. Turs, those get used for, let's see, crafting claws, probably the most popular one. And this usually peaks around an istron. It is a level 3, so one thing to consider, if you look next to the tur, it says 3. Soul is a level 12. Rerolling gems, or sorry, rerolling runes above 9. I sell those stacks for like an ist. Some people will maybe only offer a mal, but it takes a long time to accumulate 50 of a rune. One tip that I recommend, I never merge runes to get another level up. So if you have a bunch of one rune and you need the next one up, it's just not worth it to cut your quantity into thirds. It's best to just wait till you hit that 50. Just be patient. You will make more in the long run. When it comes to soul runes, this is your most popular crafting rune. I don't sell 50 for less than a gold all season long. This is what is used in conjunction with your emerald to make those safety crafts. When it comes to re-rolling charms, it's 3 perfect gems or like 2 in skulls. You can use skulls as well, but it's just not going to be worth your time. With large charms and elemental large charms in PD2, those are best unsought for many characters. So let's say you re-roll a charm and you get 45 poison and bone skills. Magic is the better charm to put in your inventory, like an elemental large charm, whether it's poison or magic, but a poison and bone lifer is not worth that much. So the odds of you making your money back rather than just selling stacks of those gems, it's very low. So I don't recommend re-rolling charms. One thing you can do with your skulls is you can reroll jewels. Jewels on PD2 are insane. Like the best possible melee jewel you could get is 40 ED, 15 to minimum, 30 to max. So those are insane. If I were to make that jewel, that'd be worth like literally 70 high runes. So definitely save your skulls, or you can sell them. A stack of skulls minimum is a gold rune. It can get upwards of like 0.4 or a vex. Vex is kind of unlikely, but some people really like re-rolling. My jewelry rolling luck has been trash. I've never really made anything amazing, but the odds of getting a really good caster jewel, like 3 mana after each kill, 3 life after each kill, those are worth a lot as well. The risk reward is pretty good. So if you want to buy skulls and re-roll jewels, that's one thing to do. One thing to note, never use skulls to re-roll maps or to convert magic maps into rares. It's better to buy destruction orbs from Anya and then convert that white map into a rare. Never use skulls, never waste them on maps. Oh, one more thing, I didn't talk about frags. Early on, for a lot of the season, people are kind of cheap when it comes to frags. They usually offer like an rune, but I don't sell frags for less than a mal. So if people aren't willing to spend a mal rune on 50 frags, I just hold on to them all season. There's always somebody willing to buy stacks and stacks of frags. Lastly, let's briefly talk about the trade site. I do want to do a more in-depth video on the trade site, more like a tutorial, but in general, go to live.projectdiablo2.com and utilize this for trading. This is where supply and demand is showcased. If somebody posts an item and there's 20 people with the same item and they all have it listed for Vex, look for the one that is listing it for Gold or Gold Mal, and then you're going to get the best deal. And then this is where you are more likely to trade with international people. If you are working from home, you can just have it on a tab and you get a notification. And you can just pop into a game, trade, and then go back to work. This is where it comes in clutch when you can't find an item. Being able to trade with people in all different time zones, this is how it's done. Yes, in the moment you can make trade games, you can post in the trade channel, but this is where you're more likely to get the item that you want, especially with specific corruptions and then for the best deal. So keep this updated. List your items, bump it every 12 hours if possible, keep it updated. If you find an item, just routinely come here, post it, make sure it's posted. And then one little tip, again, I will go more in depth on the trade site, but one little tip, try your best not to list it for offer. Try to find it on here. Don't go to the Reddit unless it's super unique. Don't go to the subreddit and say, hey, what's this worth? Check the trade site first. Check the trade site first. You can also post in one of the channels, say, hey, what do you think this is worth? And maybe they will give you a range. But what I recommend, if you truly don't know what it is, if you have a general idea, just post it high. You can always lower it. If you post it high and somebody offers you just a little bit less, just take that. Perfect. But it's going to be a waste of your time and everybody's time if you list it for offer, especially if you have a general idea of what you will sell it for. Recently, somebody listed an item for offer. I offered 1.5. He said, I was hoping to get 2.5. So then I said, well, why didn't you list it for that? That was actually a fair price, but just because he had a price in mind and he didn't list it, I didn't want to trade with him. I just kind of blacklisted that person. So yeah, don't waste anyone's time. List anything but offer. You can always lower it. I think that's it. If you guys have any other questions, leave a comment. If you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you guys want to see more from me, subscribe to the channel. All right, bye.